In this box right here is the Bambu Lab H2C 3D printer, and it is very hard to overstate how enormous this 97-pound box is. It's big enough to support a full-grown corgi. High five. High five. And just for scale, here's me, a full-size, 5 foot 10 inch tall, 40-year-old guy next to the box that the H2C came in. And watching some other videos, I did learn that you are supposed to basically keep the box on the ground, and that way it's easier to lift the printer onto whatever table or thing you're gonna put it on. There are very specific instructions for how to open this box. And then you can see in here, this is what we've got. We've got the H2C AMS Combo, and that means it comes with the printer and this AMS up here. It's a multicolor, multi-nozzle printer, so I don't think Bambu even sells it without the AMS. I think you have to get the combo version of this. And before going too far into this unboxing extravaganza, I do want to let you know that Bambu sent this to me at no cost, but I'm under no obligation to make a video, say anything, do anything, or anything like that. But this is a very expensive high-end 3D printer, and I want to be super clear that when I was using my own money to shop for printers and buy a new printer, I chose to get the P2S, which I thought was the best choice for me, and that is at a significantly lower price point, and I absolutely love that printer. In some of my P2S videos, I've talked about how long it can take to do multicolor prints on the P2S and how much waste can be created from changing filaments in the single nozzle. Bambu said that the H2C with its multi-nozzle system, the Vortek system, is something that basically takes care of that issue. So that's the thing that I'm mainly excited to check out here, in addition to just seeing what this printer can do. So I'm gonna unbox this, set it up, see how it works, and then, compare it to the P2S and basically just have some fun with it. I felt very bad for the FedEx delivery driver who had to wheel this up to the door. All right, so we cut that off. We have to pull to unlock the box clip fasteners. So I believe those are these things here. Oh, okay, this is clipping the lid of the box, the outer part to the inner part of the box. And it looks like there's 2 of these on this side, 2 more on the other side. So the next step is to lift off the cover of the box. Whoa, okay. There's the quick start guide, very similar to the P2S. We have this accessory box, which has our hot ends. The toolbox kit, which is one of the super fun to print this toolbox, I remember. Our external spool holder. Looks like some extra bits for like cleaning and maintenance and stuff. Should be able to lift this cover out. Wow, this is a piece of wood. There's just a piece of wood, you believe it? Okay, this says 2 or more people are needed to carry the printer due to its heavy weight. I have the strength of 2 men. Oh my God, this is quite heavy indeed. Ooh. I don't know if I should be that winded from that, but this is a heavy thing. As expected, this is significantly bigger than the P2S. In terms of inches, the P2S is basically 15 by 15-ish, and this is basically 20 by 20, and it's taller. But I think I've been so nervous about this being giant that it actually doesn't seem as unmanageable as I was worried it might be, thankfully, unless I'm just in denial. I like that this has windows on the side because one of my favorite things to do is just watch the 3D printer when it's printing. It has this smaller window here, and on this side over here, it has a pretty big window, and this is where the Vortek nozzle changing system happens. So you can actually watch all that stuff happening, which is just super fun. If you want to see how the size of this compares to the P2S, I will jump ahead in time and insert a shot right now of them next to each other, just so you can see the difference in the H2C and the P2S. Open this up for the first time. And in here is the AMS Pro. As far as I understand it, there's a version of the H2C that also has a laser component. And if you get that version, the glass will actually be green instead of the normal just the normal color. This is not that version, so it doesn't have the green glass. There we go. I think, let's see, this does open all the way flat. On the P2S, the door only opens about this far. It doesn't open all the way. That's just kind of cool. So the build plate is 330 by 320 by 325, which is a little bit smaller than the other H series printers. And that's because you have this whole system on the side over here for changing out the nozzles. So that takes up some space. And then the build plate is actually a little bit smaller. The top glass is wrapped in its own cardboard protector. And actually, I'm gonna set this off to the side until we get the AMS out all the way. A few interesting things on the back of the printer. So up here we have inputs for the left and right extruder, which is interesting because I think it's the left one of these is just one nozzle and the other one is the interchangeable one. You actually have a separate input for TPU filament, and this is actually squishy, it's sort of a different material. Down here we have a safety key. And so this is something that actually needs to be plugged into this little port. And that is important because without that plugged in, the printer won't turn on. And if you ever want to turn off the printer, for some crazy reason, something went wrong, you just pull that out and it will shut down automatically. You can also get a control, I think maybe it comes with a laser version, which is kind of a big red button that mounts on the side here, and then you can just smash that and turn it off if something goes wrong. I think that's primarily for the laser version because you're dealing with lasers and things can go a little crazier than just the regular printing version, but it's a cool safety mechanism to have on just the regular 3D printer version. Secure and install smoke ventilation pipe. So that you need to get real intense about ventilation if you're going to be dealing with the laser. And then here is our normal poop chute, which shouldn't be super active because a big point of this printer is to reduce filament waste and purge waste. So if you get one of the Bambu printers that comes with an AMS, the AMS will be packed inside, and there are a bunch of Allen key kind of supports and holders and foams and all this stuff that you need to remove. And there are also some kind of hidden up here in the corners, and there's some down here on the bottom as well. The quick start guide is important, and it also comes with these nifty stickers. I'm a sucker for stickers. These QR codes are really helpful because they take you to setup guide videos, especially here, the video guide on step-by-step to getting started with the printer. I jumped ahead a little bit because I had gone through this process with my P2S, but now that we're getting into more of the specifics where the H2C is a little bit different, I want to make sure to use the setup video just so that I get everything correct and I don't mess anything up on this very expensive printer. So now the AMS is free. Once the AMS is out, then you can remove like the rest of the foam and the rest of the screws. You just want to make sure everything that's not supposed to be in here gets released and comes out. There are 2 screws behind this bottom mount for the AMS. And then there are some other screws now. They have these orange stickers, and these also need to come out. Basically one in each corner. And I actually like to save all the little screws that you take out of the packing material because they can just be helpful to have in general. Plus you can also find a lot of use for stuff like this in certain 3D prints. And in fact, the part that comes out of the rear center of the printer actually has clips for holding some of the screws. In fact, I actually ended up using the screws on this toolbox I printed for the tools in the H2C. So this is a little bit different than the one that came for the P2S. I don't think this is an official Bambu design, but there's a top layer that has spaces for all the nozzles, and then you lift that off like a candy box, and then you've got all the tools in there, and there's kind of nice spaces for everything. But the extra screws came in handy for these latches right here, and then also for the hinges on the back. And obviously they're not like the perfect size or anything, but they get the job done, they work well, and it was a good use of those extra screws. With my P2S, I kept the box and the packing materials for a few weeks until everything seemed to be running fine, and then I got rid of those. I think it's a good idea to keep all of this packing material, even though it's a lot, but you see some of these like really specialized plastic parts and all the screws and things. If something goes wrong with your printer and you need to send it back, it's gonna really not be fun if you don't have the proper packing materials. So keep that stuff at least until you're sure that the printer's working great and everything seems good, and then toss it or recycle it. So now inside the printer, we can basically start taking off all these little bits of tape, taking out the foam, clipping off these zip ties that are holding everything in place. And then there's a lot of little things like this that say, please remove these little bits of foam that just kind of need to be taken out of different places. So now that I've got pretty much all the foam out of here, here's an inside look at the printer. There's still some foam down here that runs under the bed. And when I turn this on and do the calibration, it'll lift the bed up and then I can take these out more easily. But there is a lot going on inside this printer So here is the tool head where we have, this is the nozzle that doesn't change, and then this is the one that can. And over here, that's basically what this is. I don't even understand fully how it works, so I'm excited to watch it, but you can kind of see these chains drive everything up and down so that you can change the hot end. So it will just come over and grab a new one and swap it out by itself. So this one just runs one constant color or material, and this one can be swapped out with any of these. You can also use different size nozzles as well. And then over here we have a pretty powerful looking fan. We have a giant filter in the back. We've got our windows, which are very cool, letting a lot of natural light. It just looks so high tech and complex, but it's supposed to actually be a simple printer to use and supposed to work pretty well and pretty, easily. And this does seem to have what I noticed in the videos I watched, but also in looking at it right now with my eyes, it seems like there's plenty of space between this top tube and the glass, so it doesn't have that rubbing issue that the P2S has, which hasn't really been an issue at all with the P2S, but it's something I mentioned in my unboxing video and something people and I talked about in the comments to that video. All of the power cables and stuff were inside the AMS, which I actually did buy a second AMS for my P2S. These are a lot of letters. And I have a video all about how to hook those two AMS Pros up to a single P2S, which is super easy. It should be just as easy to hook up dual AMS units to this if I wanted to. I'm just gonna stick with the regular one now and then the external spool. So what kind of makes sense, default out of the box for this, is to use the external spool holder, and then this has one spool, the one that never changes, and then use the AMS for the ones that are swapping out. Potentially, I guess you could switch this with an AMS, and then you essentially have the single hot end capabilities of the P2S, and then you have the multi-head capabilities of the, I don't know, the best of both worlds, I guess. Based on my experience so far, if you have a Bambu printer, that's super satisfying. It's 100% worth getting an AMS. Doesn't matter if you have multiple nozzles or not. It's just so nice to be able to have multiple filaments ready to go, to switch them out automatically, to keep them dry at the proper humidity level. Like, it's just, these things are 100% worth it. Like I said, I bought the P2S Combo that came with one, and then I bought a second one for my P2S. I feel like there's a chance the second one for my P2S might end up being a second one for this one, but we'll see. The AMS comes with these packets of desiccant in the back there, and all you need to do is open them up, open this outer package, don't open this package, and then these just live in here. And now this should just be able to go on top here. So following the setup video, I put the longer PTFE tube from the AMS into the top extruder, the right extruder, and then I put the single one down into the left extruder on the bottom. And then this is the AMS data/power cable. You don't need to plug in power on a single AMS going here, and you can still use the drying function when it's not printing. If you connect a second AMS, you can daisy chain them just using another one of these cables, but you will need to add power if you want the second one to be able to dry while either of them are printing. And then the other thing is I just made sure to have this little key in here. This screen is a little bit different than the P2S. It was interesting because the P2S, you have to attach the screen. This one's already built in and it's like flat up against the printer, and then it kind of leans out that way. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. This is the point where the setup video says to turn on the printer. I have not installed any filament, and I have not installed any of the hot ends or the nozzles. I haven't put anything in here. So according to the video, I think the setup process guides me through that. Let's see if that's the case. So here is the initial power on. 3, 2, 1. Is the power on? Oh, look at this. Look at this light down here. This is different. The P2S does not have this. Since I already have a Bambu account with the other printer, I should be able to actually just add a printer here. I think I can just scan this QR code. Now I can add it to my account, bind it to my account. Oh, I gotta think of a good name for this thing. What should I call this? Nazi for all the nozzles. Bambi. You know, my Final Fantasy 14 character is Atom 8-bit, A-T-O-M, like up and atom. I'm gonna name this Atom. Atom. Verify this. Remove the 4 screws. Yes, I did that. Remove zip ties, foam pieces, and tapes. I'm gonna just double check. As far as I know, I did it correctly. Now we're gonna do the calibration. This is gonna take quite a bit of time, 26 minutes. We'll start that. Now the bed is lifting with this really cool light, and I should be able to remove these more easily. All right, here is the initial calibration. Look at all these parts. Look at this, it's moving. Whoa. This is crazy looking. I'm guessing it'll tell me when to install the nozzles. And then just like the P2S, we've got our camera up here. Oh, is this metal? The bottom of this almost feels metal or very heavy duty plastic. But this is flat. The P2S has a lip, but this is flat. So if you need to scoop things out, it should still be pretty easy. That's a really nice quality of life feature on the P2S. So it did take about 26 minutes, just like the printer said. And now it is calibrated and it says we are ready to get started. And we have to set up the induction hot end rack, which is the thing that has all the nozzles and stuff. So we don't have any nozzles in here. Well, do you see how fast it took the nozzle out of this end one here and put it back in? Oh, it's taking it out. Wait, is it actually? Oh, it's taking it out each time. Look at that. Oh, it's so fast. That's crazy. It's faster than I could even see. All right, hot end rack setup completed. Please install the hot ends. So with that in mind, here are the hot ends. You get 0.2, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, and 0.6. And the one that's in there, I believe, is already a 0.4. Hold the hot end by the heat sink with 2 fingers and avoid touching the other parts to prevent burns. I'm supposed to hold it by the heat sink, clip it on there. Oh no, there's a light on it. Look at that. And that means it's installed correctly. So I put a 0.4. I'm gonna put another 0.4 on number 3. Oh, that's like really sensitive. Look at that light. As soon as it's it's very magnetic, and as soon as it goes in there, there it goes. So I'm putting the 3.4 hot ends on the row A, and then I should be able to raise this up for row B. There we go. And now I can put my other 2. So I have the 0.2 and the 0.6, and then there's room for the one that's already in there. I'm primarily, I think, going to be using the 0.4. So that's why I put them all in the same row so that one row can pretty much stay lifted the whole time. I don't know if that makes sense. There might be better ways to arrange these, maybe. Congratulations, you've completed installation. You can now start printing. All right. I'm guessing there were probably also firmware updates to install, so I should do that before I start printing. We've got some firmware. So while this is updating the firmware, I'll tell you about the first print I'm going to do. It's actually not a benchy. I feel like I trust it enough to be fine with benchies. I'm actually going to print this, which is a 10-sided die. And the reason being is because even though this is a very simple print, it's small and it's only 2 colors. This is one of the prints that I did on my P2S that kind of really showed where something like the H2C might shine. So again, this was 2 colors. I think it was about 375 layers total, but about 350-ish of those layers have both colors on them. So the P2S can change colors because it has the AMS just like this, but every time it changes the color, it has to purge the old color out. Every time it purges the color, it creates one of these little poops, these little purge waste bits. And in the case of a print like this, where you have multiple colors on individual layers, every time it needed to go from blue to white, it had to purge the blue, insert the white, then purge the white, do the blue. And so each layer produced 1 or 2 of these little purge waste things, which means if 300 to 350 layers had 2 colors on them, and it was producing 1 to 2 wastes every layer, that means it was creating, I don't know, math is hard, but it's around 400 to 500 of these little things right here. It filled the poop chute on my P2S twice just to print this. And because it has to do that, it also makes the print take a lot longer. So it actually took 9 hours just to print this little thing. The quality of the print is fantastic. It looks awesome. It barely even looks 3D printed. Like it is amazing print quality, but something so tiny and only 2 colors took 9 hours and created a ton of waste. The benefit of having all these different nozzles on the H2C is that each one can essentially be dedicated to a certain color or a certain material. So that means we have 6 nozzles in there, plus I could have a spool on this external rack, so that's 7 different colors, 7 different materials that I can use in a single print. And at maximum, it would create only 7 poops for the entire print, no matter how complex it is, no matter how many times it switches colors. In theory, that's how that should work. If you need to add more than 7 colors or more than 7 filaments, then it would need to do the same thing as like the P2S does and purge that out. But that's going to really limit the amount of waste that the printer creates. And it's also going to reduce the amount of time. It does need to heat up the hot end or the nozzle every time it swaps it out, but that I think should take 20 to 30 seconds. And overall, it should be a significantly faster process than with the P2S. And I'm not throwing shade at the P2S. I absolutely love my P2S, but one of the biggest reasons that this exists is for people who do a lot of complex multicolor printing, and I want to see how much better it is at that. So I'm going to start, once this is all updated, by printing another one of these, see how long it takes, see how much waste it creates, and then I'm going to use it for a while and do some more complex multicolor prints and really kind of get a feel for it. The only limitation right now, as far as I'm aware, is that you can't use different nozzle sizes in the same print project. So I have like the 0.4 millimeter and the 0.2 and the 0.6. I can't mix and match those in a single like sliced file. It seems like something that would probably be possible, and I wouldn't be surprised to see in a firmware update, because I don't really see why you can't do that. I think Prusa can do that if I'm not mistaken. So I would expect to see that update soon. For now, basically I'm gonna stick to, you know, since I have the most 0.4 millimeter and that's the size I'm most used to, that's what I'm gonna stick with for my test prints for the time being. So firmware has been updated, and now I can finish loading things into the AMS Pro, and then it will start grabbing the filament. And if you're using Bambu's filament that has RFID tags inside, you should be able to then see exactly what filament you're using. And that'll also show up in the settings on the Bambu Handy app or the Bambu Desktop Studio app as well when you're creating your prints. The external spool holder does not have an RFID reader, so if you have a spool here, you have to enter that info manually. So if I hop over here into Maker World, I've already got the 10-sided die right here, which is pretty sweet. I'm going to choose my colors. I want the die itself to be blue. It's not the same silk PLA that I used last time, but still the same blue and white. So now that I have the nozzles installed, a window will pop up that shows what I have available to me, and I'm going to choose the 0.4 and click OK. This is a new screen that I have not seen on my P2S. And if we slice this, this is your first time slicing with a dual extruder machine. Would you like a quick tutorial video? Yes, I would. Well, here they're talking about fleshing out material on a single nozzle. So it sounds like Bambu Studio, once it knows that you're using a printer with more than one nozzle, it syncs that info, and then it can make all these recommendations to be as efficient as possible. We'll see. I could be totally making mistakes on this first print here. But if I go back here and I slice my plate, we're gonna do convenience mode based on actual filament status. Okay, look at that. 2 hours and 23 minutes. This print took 9 hours when I did it on the P2S. So, and I let it auto arrange and it placed it over here on the build plate. So I figure that's the most efficient way for it to do it. And I don't know, I'm just gonna click send. All right, so here it's starting the print. You can see the die right there. Whoa, this little vent just popped up here. That was crazy. I didn't know it had that. I guess maybe because I'm using PLA. You can see it now sending the blue filament through this nozzle, and then it should swap out to another one for the white. So this one will only be for blue for this print. So it has started the print, and you can see where it needs a number. So then it went ahead and switched the filament all on its own from the blue to the white, and now it's getting ready to print the white filament down here. And now, in theory, since it's already printed with blue and white filament, and those are the only filaments needed in this print, it shouldn't need to create any more waste while printing, even though it has to switch between the filaments. I've watched it switch through a couple of times now, and it really does seem like it's about 20 seconds, 30 seconds to like heat up the nozzle and swap it out. There, now it's getting rid of the white and it's gonna bring in the blue. It swapped out the nozzle, it's gonna bring in the blue, it's gonna prime it, and it's printing so fast. Like the P2S is incredibly fast. Look at the speed that it's printing with the infill, the prime tower, the perimeter. It's pretty unreal. I didn't realize it at the time, but this vent in the back opened up at the same time as the top vent there. Now this rear vent opened up as well. The print is finished and it took just as long as it said, about 2 hours and 20 minutes total. If I compare it to the original one from the P2S, the quality is exactly the same, even though I did use the slightly different filaments. And the fact that this was 9 hours, this was 2 hours, 20 minutes is pretty crazy. So when I printed this one on the P2S, this is my poop chute from that printer, it filled like 2.5 of these with the tiny little bits of purge waste. 2.5 of these completely full. Now here is all of the waste created by that exact same print on the H2C. It's 6 pieces. I don't know the exact math, but it was hundreds and hundreds of pieces to do this on the P2S, and this is it for that one. There is also, to be fair, there is the little like purge line that it did, and of course the purge tower that needed to be done next to the multicolor print. Same was true for the print on the P2S as well. So technically this is all of the waste created by that print on that printer. So this is an awesome setup and an awesome first print, and it was so fun to just watch this thing work, the way that it like visually, it's just a really entertaining printer to watch, and it worked really, really well. So now I'm excited to kind of experiment with it more and use it more and do some more complicated prints with it. But I do want to be clear that the P2S is a really fantastic printer, and the print quality is exactly the same between them. They were both released around the same time, and the P2S was actually released a little bit after this one, so it's technically the newer printer, but it really is a simple, smaller version of this from what I can see so far. Now, for multicolor prints, that's really where you're gonna notice the difference. If you're printing things like this is something where it's all one color and then it switches to another color, that doesn't create a lot of waste on the P2S because you just only need to purge out this color when you start and then purge out this color when you change. So that's not really a big deal. Where you start creating a ton of waste on multicolor or multi-material prints is when the colors and the materials are mixed in together on each layer, and then the printer has to change filaments or materials on each layer. That just takes a lot of time and creates a lot of waste, and that's where this really cuts things down. It really is 20 seconds max, it seems like, from the time it stops printing with one color to the time it starts printing with another color. So if you're somebody who primarily does single color prints or very, basic, simple multicolor prints, going the extra, lots of money for this printer probably doesn't make sense. But if you're somebody who does a lot of multicolor, multi-material prints and everything's kind of mixed in, you would definitely notice a huge boost to your workflow and your whole process, I think, using a printer like this. Anyway, I need to take some time and get it set up in its permanent home and then do some printing. Through the magic of editing, we will jump ahead in time 1 week. I now have 39 hours of printing on the H2C, so that's in that week about a full-time amount of work hours, and it has been absolutely fantastic. I've had 0 issues. I know 39 hours isn't like, for a printer like this, it's basically nothing, but it should be enough for any issues to, make themselves evident. It's great. The P2S is also great. I have put the H2C on this very sturdy printer stand because it's a heavy, I think it's 71 pounds, this printer, plus the AMS and the filament. So this stand's rated for like 150 pounds, 180 pounds. And my plan is that it can be in this spare room where the printers are, and then when I need it in my office, I can wheel it in there, and we will see how much that happens or not, because it's a big, heavy printer. I thought the P2S was big when I got it. It feels so compact and like easy to move now. So I've been doing a variety of prints, and I've been trying to stick with things that are multicolor. Like this little guy here, not a huge print, but we have 4 different colors: pink, white, blue, and black, and they're all kind of mixed in, especially to get the mouth inside there. It's kind of a cool kind of a cool design there. And I've also done just some bigger practical prints, like finally printing a bunch of spools on my own because I ran out of my own spools. So I printed a few in different materials, and we'll see how homemade spools work compared to the ones that you get with your bamboo filament. So far, so good. We'll see. I didn't want to just print multicolor stuff on both printers to compare the waste, because that is the biggest difference in how the printers work, because I just didn't want to create a bunch of waste for the sake of creating waste on the P2S. That didn't seem super practical, but I did one test print to kind of show that, and it's these little color test coins. So these are each 4 colors, and the 4 colors are across each layer. So that means the printer needs to change colors 4 times per layer. And so I do have this comparison in the amount of waste that the P2S produced in doing that. This is a small print. It also took the P2S 2.5 hours to do this. And I also have the waste produced by the H2C for the same print, which also took 59 minutes, so less than half the time, and produced way less than half the waste. So from everything I can see, the idea that using the multiple nozzles and switching those out to reduce waste is exactly correct. Now, in those 39 hours, in all the different prints that I've done, I have not checked or emptied the poop chute, the waste bin yet. That sounds like beignet. Anyway, I looked it up in my history. I have done 10 prints, not counting the 10-sided die that I did at the start of this video when I first got the printer, and all of them have been multicolor. Even the waste bin is, because I printed the mount for this that goes on the back of the printer in blue, and I printed this in black, so even this was technically a multicolor print, although that was pretty simple. And the spools that I printed are only single color. Those are the only single color prints. Everything else had multiple colors, including some pretty complex ones like this San Jose Sharks logo, which is amazing. So how much waste was created and all that? Here we go. That is it. Maybe this carpet's not the easiest viewing surface, but this is not that much waste at all. And there are a couple of the little like purge bits and brims and things from different prints, but for all of that printing, this is it. Multicolor prints do usually create a purge tower like this, so that also does technically count as waste, but there's no difference in this between the P2S and the H2C because they both need to generate those. They're not really seeing a difference there. In terms of that amount of waste, the fact that like, at that rate, I'm not gonna have to empty this bin actually for like months. But if you remember the 10-sided die, the one that I did on the P2S, it filled the bin, which was a little bit smaller than this, 2.5 times and took 9 hours just to print this. So hopefully that illustrates the efficiency of the H2C. And that's also in addition to the printer's larger build volume, so it can, it can print bigger prints. I've tried a few different materials. I did a bit of ABS on there, which it's crazy how much you have to heat up the chamber to do ABS. And because this is so big, it takes a while to heat up, but then that sucker is hot. And I really like the way when you're not using ABS, when you're using PLA, it has the automatic vents that pop open that I saw when I first unboxed it to kind of keep temperatures regulated. It does a great job at that. ABS though, it's not my favorite material to print in for a lot of reasons, but also it kind of like creates almost like a residue that sticks on the glass of the printer, so you kind of have to clean them and wipe them down. And since the H2C has all of like the Vortek system on the side there, I found myself like really trying to get in there with little cloths to kind of try to keep it looking clean and nice. So ABS is my least commonly printed material and probably will stay that way, but I wanted to try, the different stuff that I have on this printer just to let you know kind of the basics. But with all that in mind, there is something I really want to reiterate when it comes to the H2C, which is that I'm in this weird YouTube situation where it was sent to me at no cost. And I recognize that's a very lucky thing to have happen. And I think that everything Bambu said about this printer in terms of efficiency and waste elimination and all that is 100% true, and it's a phenomenal printer to use. That said, I want to reiterate that when I was using my money and my budget to choose which printer to get, I got the P2S, and I 1000% think that that was the right decision. If I were just trying out both these printers and then I had to buy one of them after trying them both out, I would still buy the P2S. Because for me, as a hobbyist printer, it just makes the most sense, even though it's not as efficient when it comes to multicolor printing. And the print quality is the same between them. So it's not that the H2C can handle more complex multicolor prints, it can just do so in a way that's way more efficient, both in terms of time and material. So those are really important things if you're somebody who does a lot of complex multicolor prints. Kind of like I mentioned though earlier, if you're doing things that are just one color and then another color and then another color, that's not really complex multicolor. The P2S or a similar printer can handle that really, really well. If you're doing the types of prints that have integrated colors on every layer and you're doing a bunch of those, that's kind of like the main type of printing you do, then the H2C probably is worth the extra money because it's going to make your life a lot easier. And obviously, budgets are a thing that are different for everybody. There's some people who feel that the P2S is way too expensive, and there are other people who would buy multiple H2Cs without even thinking about it. So it very much depends on your needs, your workflow, your budget. I just want to be clear that I bought the P2S, I love the P2S, and on that note, the H2C does come with the AMS Pro, like I mentioned when I set it all up, and then the external spool holder, and Bambu did send the AMS HT, but it just didn't get delivered until several days later. So I think I've never used this before, so I'm kind of think I want to do a separate video setting this up and kind of showing that. But that's essentially a single unit AMS, so it can do the drying, it can do the automatic filament detection. And so I think the reason to have that with the H2C is so you can have the AMS that has your 4 spools you can switch between on the nozzles that change out, and then on the left side where the nozzle doesn't change, you can have this, and the AMS HT just makes it a little bit more efficient and a little more automated than having just the traditional external spool just kind of hang out there. When I bought my P2S, I bought the combo that came with an AMS. So I got these 2 things right here. And then I did really like the AMS a lot, so I got the second AMS too. And then that way, you know, there's 8 spools of filament. It's really, really cool. So currently though, this second AMS is actually connected to the AMS, Currently though, the second AMS is connected to the H2C because even on the nozzle that doesn't change, it basically still has all the same functionality as the P2S does because its nozzle doesn't change. And then the other AMS goes to the changeable nozzle. So I might end up putting the HT, the AMS HT, either as an additional thing for the H2C or as the P2S. But because this AMS is in between them, it's very easy to switch it between the 2 printers with no problem. So if you're looking at Bambu printers and you're looking at the P2S and kind of wondering what the difference is and what that leap gets you when you go from the P series to the H series, if you wanted to see what the H2C has to offer, I hope this was helpful. Definitely curious to know your thoughts. Again, still think the P2S is like just the best all-around value you can get. It's still the one that I did spend my money on and would spend my money on. But if there's something you are curious about the H2C or something you think I should test, try, figure out with the H2C, please let me know because I want to use both of these printers, you know, as fully as I can. I've downloaded Fusion to try to see if I'm ready to graduate from Tinkercad. My first tutorial is not going well, so we will see how I can power through that. Otherwise, you know, my goal is to have fun with 3D printing, and I've been able to have a ton of fun with both of these printers.